The enemy was literally millions of years old, and they were at the gates. They had been hunting her kind for nearly as long as they had existed. Their species was essentially xenophobia personified. So when they had met the first of her race, if you could even categorize something like her with mere words, they had nuked it to the ground. Finding more like her out there, they had gone on a holy crusade to wipe the galaxy clean of such abominations. Normally there was nothing to hold them back. Though they had great power, their sphere of influence was limited. When the presence of her kind was made known, they were often worshipped, and why wouldn't they be? They often held the fate of billions in their metaphorical grasp. But a species that spent its time worshipping a god of limited power couldn't advance, and would die right along with their gods, simultaneously purified by the burning crusade. She had watched their wars, wishing she could end them, but their fate required bloodshed. She had allowed physics to take over, allowed the waves to crash over their cities, allowed the very ground underneath them to split apart with such fury that they once blamed it all on her. The crackling energy in the skies that she could easily control was let loose, setting homes ablaze and killing indiscriminately, all in the name of vengeance that she could only hope would occur. A way to prevent her inevitable demise. Luckily, the centuries of death and instability led to something new, endless and relentless progress. She had watched her keepers grow and spread out across the surface of their world. She watched them learn, with every step, how to fight their inevitable deaths. Soon, in the blink of an eye for her kind, the threats she had let loose upon them became negligible. Forces that were solely under her control were soon managed and then amplified by their own hands. Soon, they cracked the crust underneath them on their own, digging up the bones of their ancestors and setting them ablaze to fuel their terrifying industry. She watched them scorch the skies they once stared in wonder at, all to support a growing population that already numbered in the billions. For once, in the millions of years since she had first become aware of her inevitable doom, she had hope. That hope was growing in leaps and bounds, even as she saw her ancient enemy approaching. Whether or not she survived the Holy Crusade, her unknowing guardians would at least be a surprise. Today, however, was different. The enemy was staring down her and her barely united children, determined to end her kind once and for all. For now, she took the form of the species she had carefully tended to over millennia. They were bipeds, a curious design that she had found amusing when they had first emerged. Now, she saw its as inherent superiority. It freed up their other two limbs, allowing them to create their terrifying machinations. Machinations that were even now preparing to lash out at her ancient enemy. "I was wondering if you would join us." She turned to face the blue-uniformed man next to her. He was an admiral of the Terran Navy, a force that had been formed in the years since she had finally made her presence known among all of humankind. Even after all that time, being in the physical presence of one still made her nervous, as if she was a child about to be caught stealing sweets. She looked over his face, the one of a grizzled veteran, an American, if she recalled his tribe correctly. She remembered when she first noticed that the hunter-gatherers had drawn up territory and claimed it as their own. It made no sense to her. They were all Africans. Why did they have to change into something else just because they had moved across a tiny ocean? She still didn't fully comprehend it ages later, but she had long come to accept the fact that humanity was determined to keep itself divided. Even as they all united under the Terran Defense Initiative, they insisted that their own flags be flown directly underneath. A sign that their differing subcultures and ideologies still existed, only slightly muted by the blue banner that featured all of their homes that stood above them all. "My fate will be decided today. The least I can do is make an appearance." She watched the human across from her spread open his lips in a way that usually indicated that one was going in for a satisfying kill. A signal that the bipeds had repurposed as a way of showing amusement. It was disturbingly typical of their kind. Hey now. Our fate is tied with yours. Even with the bases on Luna and Europa, most of our people are still right here. If you go down, we go down. Luckily, that's not going to happen. She tried to match the human smile with one of her own, but it ended up looking off somehow, as demonstrated by the puzzled expression on the Admiral's face before he recalled what she had told him once before. When I take on your form, it's not really perfectly accurate. Not having taken this form in several centuries doesn't help either. He could forgive her for that much. Hell, he could forgive her for just about anything, considering who and what she was. He nodded to the orderly that had come between them. The enemy fleet is as she predicted, sir. They're coming in slow, and they have deliberately exaggerated their energy signatures. Admiral Graves released a sort of half snort, half laugh, hardly believing his luck. Ensign, I believe it's time we show these psycho-religious pricks that their days of trying to scare planets are done for. After taking one look around the bridge of the Atlantis, a massive space station that was the main command and control center for the TDI, the Admiral flipped a switch on his microphone, allowing him to broadcast to every commander and fleet that would have the honor of engaging the enemy before they reached their target and faced the full might of humanity's war machine. No doubt his command would be heard on every speaker in the fleet. They were about to get in range of an enemy more ancient than the entire human species. A little bit of confidence-boosting flair certainly couldn't hurt. First Fleet, you're clear to engage. Show them the fury of Gaia's children. Their crusade ends here. Good hunting. Author's name and link to original text is in the description.